All right, so we're going to be getting into the retop one now. So what I did off screen is I just did some prep work because decimating stuff on stream, one, takes a long time, and two, can lag the stream, which is not ideal. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do what I normally do, but I will explain what I normally do. And but we'll carry on regardless. So what I normally do, once I have a sculpt that's refined, so after last week we kind of went in and did all the details. I did a little bit more off stream. Like I finished up the hands and the scales and the arm. I was mentioning this earlier, but I'm not 100% sure I like these scales. I might actually remove them. I was looking at some other examples where they just have like little, like some other like stylized scales, and sometimes they'll just do like little specks, and that kind of like variation is just in the specular map or like just little slight distortions of color, and I might double back and change it to that if I feel it's too noisy down the road, but for now I think it's good. And what I end up doing is I'll go through each and every piece one at a time, and I'll look at it in isolated view, right? So I'll just go to solo, make sure, give a good look around, make sure there's nothing I don't like, and I'll go through each piece like this. Once I'm happy with it, I'll usually save a duplicate of my file, and call it my decimation file, or underscore deck. And I'll go in and I'll go through each piece again. I'll go to Z plugin, decimation master, pre-process current, and then once it's processed, I'll decimate it. I usually just keep it at 20, because I'm lazy, but it might be good to kind of like dial it down to as low as you feel is nice before you start losing detail. But I find 20 for the level of detail I normally do holds my details just fine. And it's consistent, and I don't have to think about it, so I just kind of like decimate everything at 20. Is it just me, or let's see, hasn't been here for a while? Oh, it's unrelated. Okay. Anyway, so what I do is I do that, and I go through all the pieces, and then I decimate them. And then I have my decimation file, and I will export that later as an FBX. So I'll go like, export, and then I'll export this as an FBX, right? And then you have to kind of wait for it to export. Once I have all that, yeah, export as FBX, because then you get a bunch of parts. But we'll go over baking in a few weeks, so we'll get into that detail later. I wouldn't worry about that right now. The big thing is like, you have your decimated file and it's ready to go for later. And then what I do is I take everything that's been decimated, I merge it all together, and I run the decimation master again, and I decimate it again. You'll see that this is pretty low decimation, right? Like it's very faceted, it's not pretty. However, what I use this for is for retopo purposes. Now, a lot of software can't handle the same number of polygons as ZBrush has, including Maya and 3D Coat. So by doing this, I can bring it into other software for retopo, and that software can handle it okay, right? And the reason I merge it all as one piece is so that I don't have to like go through each piece and then run the processor and then decimate it one by one. You could run it like a pre-process all and decimate all, but I find a lot of the time ZBrush fails when it does that, and then you have to keep running it over and over again. It's just not pleasant. So it's easier just to merge it together. And it also kind of fits my workflow anyway. 2D Code is surprisingly sturdy if you import. I've not had that experience, class. It's lagged heavily for me when I've tried to import sculpts. So this is why I work this way. And even if I didn't, I think decimating a lot is good for another reason, which is you don't focus on the little details because they get blown away, right? So if you have these little tiny cuts, you're not like, I want to add topology on those little tiny cuts. They're not even there. They're decimated. They're gone. So that's another thing too. So then you don't end up with like these super small little details in your mesh that just don't matter. Okay, so I look at this and I say, okay, now I'm kind of breaking it down. It's like, how many parts do I want my model to be in? What do I want to be separated? So my main rule of thumb is like, if it's skin tight, I usually keep it one mesh. There's different ways you can approach this as well, because sometimes, say like you're doing something more realistic and you have a skin shader, and you want your skin shader to be on its own texture. You want to make sure that maybe the body mesh is its own model, and all the clothing is another model. I usually keep it all one piece. You can use masking to say like where it's skin and where it's not skin, if you want. But you know, you have to do it whatever works for your project. So like in the past, I've always done, you know, I've just kept it one piece, and I just bake this all together, and that's fine. But in my current job, they're like, actually, we want the skin to be a separate mesh, and that's a stylized game as well. But the rendering team and the materials team has come from a more realistic background, so they like working that way. But it's something to keep in mind that you'll have to work in different ways, and how you break up your model will be different. However, what I'm going to be doing is anything that's skin tight, like these wraps, you know, the tights, the glove even, that's all going to be one mesh, and it's all going to be part of the base body. And what I might also do, or what I will do, is I'm going to split the model at where the skin connects. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can get a nice clean bake. But we'll have to mess around a little bit for that to look nice. We'll see though. I might not, but I'm kind of leaning towards that direction. Ria, welcome in. Always messing her glorious workflows. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I have to take this. I don't think I've polygrouped this yet. No. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is when you decimate everything, your polygroups go away. So I'm just gonna auto group this. And I'm going to just start removing stuff I don't need from the base body, right? So these things are not going to be part of it. It's all going to go away. You know, I might work the other way around. I'm going to work the other way around because this is there's a lot of pieces. I'm going to go the other way around. So I need the body. So we'll keep the body. We want all these wraps in there. Right. Okay. That's all going in there. Come on, give it. Tights. I think this piece could also be part of the base body, and this. Straps I'm going to keep separate. I used to bake those in too, but I don't do that anymore. And I'll explain why in a second. Actually, I'll explain why now. These straps, I used to include straps like this in the base body, but what I like to do now is because like you end up like. You can get away with it. If you want something low poly, I'd recommend just baking these down because they are, you know, straight touching the body. But I do like to keep the straps and have like this little loop in the hole through it. It just looks nicer. And then you can have like this little piece that's kind of like splaying off the end. I like doing that way. It's not optimal for like, you know, if you want to do something super low, or if you want to do something for mobile or stuff like that, maybe don't do this. Maybe just bake these into the body. But right now we're going to keep those as a separate piece because that's what I want to do. Yeah. Did I miss anything? I always find it very annoying later when it comes to rigging when things like shoes and cloths overlap with the skin, making it yes. That's the other thing too. So if you have them separate pieces, there's going to be a lot of sliding around, which is actually, so these pieces here, I'm torn about for this reason. I don't know if I want to put these straps in with the base body or not, the ones that go across, for two reasons. One, if I bake it in, you're going to get some pretty wacky topology. But if I keep them separate, they're very likely going to float and slide around. Because it's very hard to weight them to keep them in place. And it wouldn't be surprising if when like the character like bent forward or backwards, that these things would penetrate the body. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I just thought I'd try 6 feet under and I can't. I'm on Linux. Oh man, I'm sorry, Curio. Yeah, we don't have any way of testing on Linux, so we weren't able to make a build for Linux. How are you hiding that? Like part of the body, I've polygrouped it and I hit Control Shift and I click on different parts of the body and they go away. They're hidden, and if I switch, you get like that, right? That's been something I've been super curious about. Just trying to get all of those things configured for rigging and things. Yeah. Right. So I think I'm gonna keep them. I think I'm gonna bake them in. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the best solution. And these guys get baked in as well. Oops. That's one. All right. I'm going to keep this belt separate, like I was saying. I want to keep it separate. It might bite me in the ass later, but I'll just make sure that the underbody has a loop right where that belt goes, so that it'll be easier to deal with. What else do we got? I think these boots will be a separate mesh, so I'm going to leave those like that. These straps as well, you know, they'll be separate. Okay. Is there anything else I want to include in the base body? I don't think so. I think that's fine. This will be the base body mesh. Okay. And I'll cut off the model right where it starts penetrating the leg. I didn't see it penetrates the legs because it's underneath the boot, right? So it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's way under the boot, so that part doesn't matter. I'm gonna end it like just below the knee, I think. The left side probably doesn't even need that. I'll probably delete it after, but because I'll be using symmetry, that's what I'm gonna do. 5 Pata do Cavallo is now following. Thank you for following. Okay, so now I'm gonna subtool split hidden. I'm gonna name this body. Rename body. Hold on a second. I'm gonna hide my screen just to save this file because I just don't want to accidentally open work files. There we go. Okay, so save as, yeah, all right, good. I'm just saving it. All right, cool. All right, so it's saved. Anyway, so I've created this body. Now, we're going to come up with a little bit of an issue when we export this to 3D Coat, and that's the fact that she's asymmetrical. So she has this big arm here, and the problem with 3D Coat, and a lot of software have this problem, and I don't know why. ZBrush even has it. But when you import a model into either 3D Coat, Substance Painter, or ZBrush, and it's asymmetrical, it will create the center line of the scene to be the center line of your model. So the problem here is that because this character is asymmetrical, and this is sticking out further than this side, so like the other hand would be somewhere around here, that means that the center line is offset. So the center line would be around here if I imported it into 3D Coat or Substance Painter. And that sucks because we want symmetry, obviously. Like the main body is symmetrical. It doesn't make sense not to do that. So what we're going to end up having to do is we're going to create a plane, and we're going to export this model with a plane under it. The plane has to extend past the two hands, and then it's going to use this plane as the symmetry. Because general isn't saved to the file. Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand it. Well, no, because if I import it to Maya, it's fine, right? If I throw this object into Maya, it knows where the center is. So it does have to have that information. Yeah, because even if I export it as an OBJ, it would have that information, because an OBJ file is just a bunch of vertices based around the origin. So I think those softwares are actually actively changing the center pivot, which is stupid. And the fact that you can't change that pisses me off. But that's how it is. So we're going to have to create a plane. We're going to have to create a plane. Plane. All right. So that's about the right size. We're going to turn perspective off. I'm going to take this plane and I'm going to just shrink it down because I just wanted it as out of the way as possible. All right, we'll just put it down here. And that'll do it for us. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these guys and we're going to export them. And we're going to export this as an FBX. I used to always export as OBJs, and sometimes I do if it's just one object. But because this is two objects, I'm going to export it as an FBX because it'll hold both of them. And then because they're separate objects, I'll be able to hide the plane in 3D code. So I'll just export these. Just let it go. Managing asymmetrical models is just another level of difficulty. Yes. And I mentioned that when I did the design. I was like, I'm gonna hate myself as soon as I make this stupid hand. Like, why am I doing this to myself? I should have created a simpler design for the workshop. That wasn't very smart of me. But in my mind, I was like, man, I want to make something cool so that people will think it's, you know, worth learning from because I put so much effort into it. That's not how this works. Anyway, so there it is. And we're gonna go File. Okay, we're gonna go File, Import Reference Mesh. But again, because like I use this for work and stuff, I don't accidentally go to a work folder. I'm going to actually just import the reference mesh, and then I'll show my screen again. Import reference mesh. Okay. Okay, I'm in the right folder. So we're gonna import reference mesh, and then this is the temp file that I exported, right? And we'll just import that. It'll take a second. And there it is. Usually when I start it up, I'll hit 1 because it's easier to see the details. I don't know why it does like that weird shading, but it does, right? It's not the best for lighting conditions, if I'm honest. You can move your light around from here, right? So you can change the intensity of your light. I'll turn it down a little bit so that I can actually see shadows. This is supposed to adjust the angle, but oh, there we go. Uh-oh. The opposite of what I wanted. I shouldn't have done that. Oh god, it's just going worse. Thanks for this. Okay, you know what? Adjust the light angle by holding the left mouse button over this control and moving the mouse. Yeah. Except, like, this is stupid. Anyway, this is broken. I never used this, and I thought, hey, why don't I try this? Hold on, I'm gonna hide my screen again and try this again. Hold on. Sorry about that. I hope that the lighting. Okay, good. I was like, please reset the lighting for me, for the love of God. All right. Anyway, any new rigs? No, Loner Wolf. Or Lone Wolf. Sorry. I won't be making any new rigs for a while. Just because I'm busy. So anything that's not skin tight, you'll make separate mesh and then combine them inside of Maya. Yeah, that's the idea. I always just press 1 or F1 and say fuck it. Yeah, that's what I normally do too. And I thought I'd try something different, and I was wrong. Anyway, so now this is a separate piece. If you go into Paint Objects, oh, first I skipped that step. So I went in here, I hit Retopo. So we're going to Retopo mode, and then go to your Paint Objects, and then you can hide this plane, right? There, it's out of the way. But our symmetry plane, if we hit S, X-axis. Perfect, yeah? Yeah. There's our symmetry plane. And otherwise it would have been like somewhere in the middle of her eye or something stupid. Okay. Question, if I have a mesh that's meant to be cloth inside a game engine, should I make it a separated, or I can make it all part of the same mesh? I would make it separate. I'd make the dynamic meshes separate. Yeah. All right. Okay, so that is the major part of the talking for this video. I'm going to be talking a little bit, or video, I guess, workshop, class, or whatever you want to call it, I'll be talking a little bit more as I go through this process, but not as consistently. So at this point, if anyone's watching, they can like, you know, speed it double time or whatever. I don't care. I'm gonna play some music for myself, and we're gonna just delve into this and start Retopo, and I'm gonna just talk about it as we go. All right. Okay. Like for example, hair cards. Should I skin them to the rig or make it the thing? That depends on how you want to handle it. If you want to like hand key your hair, or if you want to use dynamic bones instead of dynamic meshes, then you would just skin it, which is what I normally do. Because I normally either hand animate everything or just use dynamic bones. I've never used a dynamic mesh, I'll be honest. I've just never needed it, and two, just haven't had the time to actually like invest in learning it. But I know that if you're going to create a dynamic mesh, the mesh should be separate. I unfortunately don't know. I have not used dynamic in Unreal at all. I primarily just use Unity. However, I'm very confident that you are supposed to keep that mesh separate. Based off of what I know, the dynamic meshes should be a separate object and then attached to the model. Okay. Separate mesh it is. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start getting to the topo. I'm gonna start with the face because that's the most fun. Also the most time consuming. Well, I'd say the face and the hands are the most time consuming, but the face is more fun than the hands. The hands suck. So what I normally do when I retopo is I start by creating my my loops. I'll create a loop around the eye, around the mouth, and around the nose, and around like the nose, mouth, and then around the face. And then I'll fill in the rest. And that's kind of normally how I work at things. It's a good way to make sure that you have everything that you need, right? Finally, we'll have a definitely video on how to do good topology. I hope so. I hope so. Okay, so we're gonna get in here, and already my hands are sore. I'm gonna use my tablet pen. I don't know what it is, but I've been finding over time that when I've been doing retopo, my hands just get really sore. I don't know why I can't do it like I used to be able to. And also, I'm using 3D Coat, but obviously you can do this stuff in a lot of tools, right? So I'm hoping that mainly just the Retopo, like I'm hoping to mainly explain a lot of things that are universal. Yeah, that's what I was looking to say. Yeah. Can you go quickly through all the shortcuts in 3D Coat? You know, I don't actually know a whole lot of them. Well, I won't use my pen for this if I'm going to explain stuff. But you know, if you're in points and faces, right? Left click is to place your points, and right click is to create a quad. Now, is there an auto retopo feature? I believe so, but I hate auto retopo, and I would never use it. I'm very, very strongly against auto retopo. It looks cheap and it looks lazy, and I can spot it from a mile away. Please don't do that. It's like we use it for sculpting purposes. But that's because, you know, the mesh doesn't have to be rigged. It just needs to be nice to sculpt on. So auto retopo for the sculpt mesh is fine, and it's probably better because then you're just wasting time otherwise. But for your final model, don't. You can hit the spacebar and number and just fly. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of shortcuts that I don't know of. I've never been a big shortcut guy, but I will say like all the different keys that I use, right? The only big shortcut I know is the S key, right? If you hit S, you can get your symmetry options. Also, as I'm creating these loops, I try to keep the same amount on the top and bottom, and I try to line them up somewhat, right? So I try to make sure that the bottom and top loops line up. Now, if you're creating it, there's some styles of eyes that this just doesn't work because, for instance, if I had like an anime style eye, right? You know how the anime eyes would have like this big upper loop and then like a smaller one underneath. If you try to create the same number of polys on the top and bottom, they're just not going to line up. Because they're just going to have like the super faceted top eyelid and the super dense lower eyelid. So for stuff like this, I'm just like, screw it. I just use whatever I need to. And also when you kind of make a blink, it usually kind of like blinks from here. And I don't know, it's weird. These kind of eyes are annoying. Yeah, just keep in mind, like if I'm doing something a little bit more closer to realism, I try to keep them pretty much the same on the top and bottom if I can. I do not have a Gumroad command, but if you go to Gumroad/the stuff, you will find it. Yeah, I've never had anyone try to find my Gumroad. That's why there's no command. I'll make one. Bigger command of hotkeys, yeah. I mean, why bother with importing to 3D code, then just Z-remesh? Yeah. Bad 3Ders say Z-remesh is the end of Retopo. Oh god. I don't know, man. I've worked with, like, I've had to do work where I was like cleaning up a model and they just auto retopped it and auto UV'd it, and I kind of died inside. I almost took it personally. I was like, how dare you disrespect me? Because I spent all this time like trying to make like really quality, like I try to work it as the highest quality as I can, whereas someone else will just rush it and be super lazy about it. And I'm like, man, you're just like, you're killing me. It's because like this person's working on the same project I'm working on, and I'm just thinking, how can you disrespect this project so much when I'm putting all this effort into making it good, and then I have to clean up your shit? How dare you? Anyway, I don't know. I shouldn't be so strong-footed about stuff like that because now I feel like the teachers are like, never use triangles, but I like don't. Like, I just don't think that using auto retopo tools is a good idea. Or auto UV. It's just not. Yeah. Hey Keish, how you doing? My biggest struggle for retopo and base meshing is to decide how many points to create for, say, covering an arm thing and end up lining up merging the hands. Wait. My biggest struggle for retopo and base meshing, too, is deciding how many points to create and, say, covering an arm. Things end up not lining up and merging with the hands. By not lining up, do you mean like, oh, you just like the hand has like a bunch of loops around the wrist and the upper arm doesn't? I can see where you're coming from there. So what I normally do is I'll do the whole arm and I'll do the fingers. And then I'll fill in the gap between the fingers and the hand. Another good rule of thumb is if you do not want triangles in your hand, make sure you have an even number of edge loops around the arm, going down the arm. If they're odd, no matter what you do, you're going to have a triangle in the hand. It's obvious, but like it's not something you'll necessarily think of, is like checking how many loops are going around the arm, right? And yeah, class freaking auto retopo and auto UV. It's like, man, how lazy can you get? Have a little bit of respect for you, like the person who hired you, honestly. Really, really lazy, yeah. But I mean, like, being lazy isn't always necessarily a bad thing because like you'll do things in a more optimized way. But that was just bad quality work, right? Like that was just bad. It wasn't even about being lazy. It was the fact that you did a shitty job. Like, what the hell, dude? But it especially bothered me because I had to fix it. Like I had to go in and redo it. And I just looked at it and I just was like, what the fuck is this? What the hell? Don't actually know what you're talking about? So I could go into ZBrush and I can do this. I can say like, here's my mesh, right? Let's create a cube, right? Or whatever. And I just say like, okay, here is my sphere. Symmetry on. This is gonna be a face, okay? Here's my nose, right? That's the nose. And here's the mouth. Okay, good. Here's our face. Okay, this is a face. Let's pretend this actually looks like a face. And then we took this and we just divided a couple. Oops, cancel. Divide, right? Hold on just a second. Let me hide my screen. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that pop-up didn't show a work folder, and it didn't, because otherwise I would have had to edit the video later. Okay, so there's our face. Geometry, I'm gonna just Dynamesh this, right? Nope. Okay, whatever. And then what you can do is you can do an auto remesh. So you go Z remesh, and you know we'll do an auto remesh, right? And here it is. Here's our topology. Boom. There's a loop around the mouth, you know, loop around the nose, loop around the eye, and then you get all this shit. There's poles here, it's warped, and it's got all this stuff, and it doesn't flow anywhere, right? Like this loop goes up and over the head, and it's like, what the fuck is that? And they just submit this as their model, right? They're just like, I'm gonna auto retopo this, and they give it to the client, and they're like, rig this, and I'm not the rigger on that team. I had to remodel it. I was just like, oh, how? Anyway, I was insulted. And then you can go in here and you can do auto UVs, right? UV master, Z plugin, unwrap, boom. We've got UVs. Now it has UVs, and they just submitted it like that. And these UVs are probably a disaster, right? Create from polypaint. It's just this blob, right? And there's like seams where they don't belong. And they use this. They use this on their final model for the game. And I was like, you know what? This is awful. And it has stuff like this. Look at this stuff. Look at these poles. What is this? It had that junk in there. This is like, there's like spirals going up the arm. I was like, what is this? Anyway, I was mad. And here we are. Don't do that. Don't. Yeah, man. Still better than decimating and calling it a. It is better than that. But don't. Please. And I think that might be fairly common too, because like I was doing some work for a buddy, and I think this is more common for like indie stuff, right? Because people want to work for cheap and they want to get the job, and no one wants to pay. But anyway, I was doing some work for a buddy, and he was blown away when he looked at my UV maps. He's like, "Wow, these actually like are legible." I'm like, "Do you not normally get this?" And he's like, "No, I normally get like this kind of like jobbled garbage." I'm like, are people giving you auto? It's like, what the? Oh my god. Please. Please, 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 please. Look, if you're gonna take a job for cheap, still do it right. If you're taking a job, do the job correctly. It's your fault for taking a cheap job. Anyway, get what you pay for, yes, but like no one's gonna want to hire you if you like do a shitty job. I guess if they know better and are just like meh, Yeah. And I hate that way of thinking, right? You can do it fast and just put as much and not put as much detail into it. Yeah. Yeah. I'd rather like make a simpler model and do it right than do this like mess, right? It's, I don't know, man. It's super painful. But the other thing too is like that's no excuse, right? So the one job I mentioned, right? Maybe this person wasn't getting paid a lot, but that was completely on them because I was on the same project and I was getting paid fine. Like I asked what I needed and I got paid for it. So my thought is that they just didn't have enough confidence in themselves and they tried to charge a lower amount. And that's completely on them. Yeah, so look, if you're going to charge less, don't do a shitty job. Because it's your fault that you're getting paid less. And then we have this issue where like people start like trying to get artists for nothing. And you know why? You know why people try to get artists for nothing? It's because artists undercut themselves. And then they do a ton of work for nothing. All the time. And we're doing it to ourselves. It's brutal. Because now the expectations are low, right? It's just like if a bunch of artists are like, oh yeah, I'll work for like $10 and I'll work for like 10 hours and for $10 or something. That's an over exaggeration. But like people do stuff like that because they want the job. But now that person who got the work, they're like, oh, everyone works this way. And then they think, oh, well, next person I go to, it's $10 for this, right? And it's not. Fiverr rates, oh man, Fiverr tilts me so much. Anyway, I should stop being angry. That's not what people are here for. But it is it's frustrating. Hey Twig, how you doing? So one thing I used to do is I used to create a loop around this area. If you're doing something realistic, I'd probably recommend doing that, but for stylistic models, I don't. It's a pain in the butt to weight paint. But something to keep in mind too is when you're doing like the more realistic that you go, the more you're gonna want to have polygons going around specific features. In PPH, and it works great to save up enough to pay for my own 3D. Oh, nice, nice. I think what I don't like about it is it's just like it just adds to that expectation of like, oh, you can get this for $5, and it's like, you know what? How disrespectful can you be? Yeah, it's been a bit, Twig. I hope you're well for sure. Oh, you said you were well. I'm glad to hear you're well, I should say. I'm actually up and awake on Saturday morning, listening and relaxing to soft rants. Yeah. I shouldn't be ranting because like I'm supposed to be teaching, right? But I ended up ranting as I do. I'm gonna have to create a video to go before these videos, just saying sorry for all my rants. As a warning. It's like, yeah, you can watch these, but they're very rant filled. There's a lot of rant going on. Not a lot of specific teaching. Got to get those rants out, but there's a time and place for everything. Good info though. I hope so. Gonna try it and not undervalue, but I'm not optimistic. I'll take what I can get. I mean, yeah, I get it, but don't undersell yourself, right? Like, don't work for $10 an hour. At the very least, you've got to be making double minimum wage at the very least as a freelancer. That is the least you should be making. Anything less than that, and it's just wrong. Contemplating what I want to do here. I go back and forth this often. I could have a loop that goes. I kind of want a loop that goes around the nose. If I use the scroll wheel, I can change the size of that brush as well. The control shift when you're in point basis mode to get into this draw points. And if you hit control, it's insert edge loop. Music's a little bit loud. I'm going to turn it down. There we go. Obviously, you guys can't hear it, but I can. Yeah. But honestly, Cage, because like you're supposed to be making as a freelancer, you should be making double what you make in a company as a full-time gig. Because when you're freelancing, there's a number of things that you do not get, and those include benefits and days off, and a number of other things. I could like there's a bunch of stuff we can get into, but we're not going to go too deep into that. So you don't get these things. And that means that all of that has to come out of pocket. So you want to make sure that you're making more in order to compensate for that. So you have to be making more than minimum wage. And a general rule of thumb is you should be making around double what you make in a full-time job in order for it to be worthwhile, right? And that's how I operate it. Well, not anymore, because like I make more than I used to at my current job. So like if I take a freelance gig, it's pretty close to the same, but honestly I shouldn't even be doing that. But I should be like, if it's a job that I really like, I'll just do it for the same cost at this point. But if it's something that's just like added on, it would be double. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. So if it's something that I'm not like super hyped about, but they're like, yeah, we'll pay the proper rate for you to do the job, I'll be like, okay, I'll do the job. No one will ever do that though. Yeah. It's about 3 times my full-time job. Yeah. So. I think down the line I'll probably be doing it more like that as well. But generally, two times is a good amount. The nose is part I always struggle with. You did it so easily. I've made a lot of noses. But the idea is I'll create a loop that goes around like this. And then I'll create a loop that goes around like this, all the way down to the bottom of around the mouth. You'll see it in a second. I'll just quickly chop it out. I'll be adding some more loops. You can see that these are starting to stretch a lot, so we're going to need a little bit more polygons there. But yeah, here we go. We got a loop that goes like that, a loop that goes like this, and a loop that goes like that. Right? We got a couple loops around the mouth, around the nose, etc., etc. Same with the eye, right? We're going to have this one, and then we're going to have a ski mask that goes around both eyes, and then we're going to have one big loop that goes around the top of the head and under the jaw. I'm going to save this now. I'm going to hide my screen again just for saving. Okay. And you'll notice I've named this file temp. And the reason for this is because like I used to create a 3D code file for every mesh that I was retopping. And I just ended up with like a bunch of garbage a bunch of garbage files that I just never use. So what I ended up doing is like every time I'm retopping a new piece of the object, I'll export this and then I'll compile it all together in Maya, and I'll just overwrite this file because I don't need it anymore. My favorite loops are the ones that cross over themselves. Well, they're not loops that they cross over themselves. Do you mean like they go up like this and then they like go downwards kind of thing, like this? Where it has like a quad here, and this is a loop. This is a quad. I believe it would be like that. Yeah. Where basically the outer corner is a quad. And then what ends up happening is you get this kind of like loop that goes like this, and then like goes up, and then they kind of like spread apart like that. If that's what you mean, that's not a proper edge loop. It can be acceptable, but it's generally not. And we'll see how far we get with this. We're definitely not going to finish this whole body today, but I'm going to get a good chunk of it done. And then we're going to do some hard surface objects, and I'm going to show you how I go about that and reuse some of the high poly models to create a low poly mesh. It's an optimized way to work, but one step at a time. But just so that you don't get like thrown off when I all of a sudden, you know, switch gears off of this onto something else. This is the worst? Yeah, man. I kind of want to have a little bit more edge loops in the eye. Let me make sure that I did this properly. I actually don't think I did. This matches, match, check. Oh, hold on. I actually think that this needs one more to line up. All right. Okay. Line up, line up, line up. Then these two line up. And then these two line up, and I need one more down the middle here. Perfect. That lines up, lines up, lines up. Good. Okay, cool. All right. I'm going to be quiet for a little bit, and I'm just going to fill this in. Feel free to ask questions if you have any. Or it's just getting a little bit sore, and I need a second. Water, 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 water. I'll be lurking. All right, Cage. Enjoy your lurk. So this is something I don't like. So this is a very long polygon, and this is a very long polygon. These are squat. You want to try to keep them as square as possible. I'm going to smooth these out a little bit, but something to be aware of. So I'm actually going to do is going to go to delete polygons, and we're going to just delete these guys. That way we can slide these around without messing up the eye. Hungarian, man, I'm glad I found your channel so useful and cool. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I hope I can help at least a little bit here and there. I hope your day's going well. Just creating that ski mask loop that I mentioned. Goes around the face. Now, if I was to terminate like this, we're going to have that thing that we mentioned, which isn't necessarily a good thing. Okay. And then we got our ski mask. There we go. We're gonna have to clean this up a lot. It's very wobbly. I'm probably gonna run a little bit of smooth on it. I don't think I'm gonna just do a relax. Well, I could do that. It actually didn't turn out too badly. I'll have to clean it up a little bit, but we can do that. We're gonna relax a couple, but not yet. Let's get everything in place first, and then we'll run a relax on it. I do want to add an extra loop here and here, just because it's starting to get a little bit stretched, and we'll figure things out. Okay. Do something like this. Not sure how I feel about that. If I do something like that, then I end up having to have an extra loop that goes across there. I might not like that. I might just have another loop that goes across the nose like this. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. No. Exactly what happens to me in that exact spot. Yeah. To be honest, I'm trying to set my mind to relearn 3D. Even if this late in life, now I'm trying to switch over my teenager days passion to 3D. Well, that's awesome. It's never too late to get into it. If that's something you want to do, you can 100% do it, and no one can tell you otherwise. If you ever want like specific feedback or information, I'm always here. Just let me know, and I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. Don't worry about ages here, but my point still stands. No matter where you are at, you can get where you need to go. 43? That's perfectly fine. I wouldn't worry about that. I've had colleagues who had completely different careers and then switched to 3D after, got into animation, stuff like that. So it's perfectly valid. I wouldn't worry about that. If you want to start doing 3D now, you can. I was afraid you would say something like 25. Oh yeah, definitely had people who said that, but that's fine. Yeah, I know I'm picking up later. And ours are like your big inspiration, right? Oh, thank you. Just thinking of life responsibilities and established careers and things. Yeah. Yeah. No matter where you are in life, though, you'll have to juggle a little bit, and that's fine. Like everything comes with its own set of challenges, but you'll find your way. Right? I might add a couple more loops to the eyes, we'll see. Because I don't like how stretched these polygons on the side are. I might add 1 or 2 loops around the eye, just at the outer corner here. We'll see, we'll see. You know what? We won't see, we will do. We're gonna do it right now. Just try and stop me. Can't, because I've already done it. Too late. I'm no god, Fable, but I appreciate the gesture. I'm new to this 3D code. It seems to have some nice, really nice tools. I love 3D code. You can definitely do what I'm doing in other tools like Topogun and Maya. I'd recommend trying different things and seeing what works for you. But when I was experimenting with this years back, I just found that this worked best for me. I tried this in Topogun, but Topogun just didn't really feel right to me. However, I hear really good things about the new version of Topogun that's coming out, so I might check that out and give it a whirl. I think for me, something that I've always been a big, I guess, supporter of is the idea of trying new tools. Like if you hear something that there's something that's new and works really well, even if you're comfortable, it's worth trying it out. You don't have to stick with it, but try it. You never know what you're going to come across, and it might just speed you up. It might make your workflow a little bit faster or more comfortable. And if it does, then it's worth investing into, right? But there's never any harm of trying. Most, if not all, software comes with at least a little bit of a trial period. So there's no reason not to give it a go. Come on now. Some people believe in Jesus, some people believe in Allah, but I believe in Christoph. Oh man. I don't know if I'm worth that kind of pedestal. I don't even know if that's a good idea. But I appreciate it. 3D code is pretty versatile, but I use it primarily. Yeah. I don't even use it for UVs. That's another thing that I believe in as well, is like find the right tool for the right job. I have a different tool for every single step of the pipeline, because I just go through and I say like what works best for me and what allows me to get the job done fastest. And that's how I kind of work. 3D code is pretty versatile, but primarily for Retopo and UVs. Yeah, I already read that. He's also using an ancient version of 3D code. Am I? What version are we on now? I should check that out. 3D code is catching up to Topogun 3, but you need 3D code 2021 and not 2018. I need to. Really? Oh, okay. I don't have an aversion to upgrading. I just don't even think of doing it. But That's just because I find that software doesn't tend to change all that much. How does snout topology work? Like long snouts? Like a muzzle, eh? Hold on, let me see if I have an example. I think I do. Well, maybe not a long muzzle, but I have like, oh, I have a wolf model. Hold on. Where can I find myself? Sketchpad. That's right. Here, hold on. Let me see if I can find an example. I actually don't know if this is going to be a good example, but we'll see. There we go. It's not a wonderful example, but I think it'll do the trick. Okay. So this is how I go about it, right? Right, so you got a loop that goes around the mouth like usual, a loop that goes around the eye like usual, right? But then you have a bunch of loops that go this way to extend the nose, and then it kind of like switches to the eye, right? Then you have a bunch of loops, right? So you have a bunch of loops that go around the bottom of the mouth, this way and this way, and then the nose you can do whatever, right? I kind of have a loop that kind of goes around the nose-ish, like that. If you want, I tend to do that for like a dog or a cat nose. I usually like to do that. You know, same as you do with a human nose, you kind of have the loop that goes around it. This is a bit of a lower poly model, so it's not the best example, but it kind of gets the idea, right? And then I even have this loop, right? You know, ideally, maybe, well, yeah, I guess you don't really need it, but it doesn't have that loop that goes around like that, but it's okay. But that's the important stuff, right? So you have, you know, your loops that go down the muzzle, your loop around the mouth, your loop around the eye, and your loop around the nose. No worries. I like the way 3D Coat lets you wiggle the UVs around. It's pretty cool, yeah. 2021 is the first version of 3D Coat to change quite a bit. They even updated the UI. Oh, well, I should look into it. Now it's free, but it will be a paid upgrade. Oh, I should do that then. Here I'm about trying new things, and I still have this old freaking version of 3D Coat. I actually just had no idea that there was a new one. But you know, that's just how it goes sometimes. Now we're just gonna have that loop that goes all the way up around the noggin. Oops. I usually, you know, just quickly get that loop in there. And I don't really worry about whether it lines up just yet. I just want to make sure that that loop is there and I know that there's going to be a loop there, you know? I might do this. Where it's just like that. I'm not sure if this is a good idea, but we'll try it anyway. I'm not a big fan of this pole, so we'll figure it out. This is where things are going to start getting a little bit crazy, because we're getting these really stretched, elongated polygons that I don't like. And that tends to happen in the middle of the forehead, unfortunately. I usually don't like the fact that they're super stretched like that. So I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna bring all this down, right? Will you get the cavity map in ZBrush, or I will be baking a cavity map from Marmoset. That's where I'm going to get my cavity map. You can get a cavity map from ZBrush too. And I think for something realistic, if you're trying to get these really tiny skin pores, a cavity map is it's a map that masks out any indentations in your model. And you can get them out of ZBrush. And I think if you're doing something realistic with lots of little details and you want to get all the pores in there, I think ZBrush might be the better route, because if you decimate your model, you might lose a lot of the pores. Mind you, if you have a lot of like little tiny details, you're usually like the skin, you're usually better off not decimating and just baking it as is. I hope you detail the process, because I don't know how to get from. It's just an option. It's actually very easy. Here, I'll show you right now. You go here, bake, in here, configure, concavity. It's called concavity, but that's actually just a cavity map. Yeah, there's some construction going on outside. I'm sorry. Or maybe not construction, but someone using a leaf blower or a vacuum. Unfortunately, they've been doing a lot of construction around me. They've been replacing all the sliding doors in my building. It's been a little bit loud and frustrating for months. Marmoset is great, yeah. I was just asking because I was wondering if there if it was your mic or background noise. Oh no, it's background noise. No, it's not like an AO map. AO map considers anything that is casting shadow from one object to another. Cavity map is just worried about the indentations. Okay, it is a vacuum. They're vacuuming the hallway. I'm gonna mute myself for a little bit. Well put, Cable. Hey, Dev Chris. Thank you for the follow, Gungarian. Okay. Sounds like they may have stopped. Yeah. There we go. Just watch them to start backing again. I bet they will. Hopefully that's better for you guys. Now I'm not going to do the top of the head because she has hair, and that's just a waste of time. How much can the poly be stretched? You want it to be as little stretching as possible. But if things aren't really deforming, like the scalp here, I don't care. You know? The scalp isn't deforming. Unless you have some squash and stretch, but that even, like, the thing is, if you squash and stretch your model, it's going to look all distorted and weird anyway. No one's going to notice that the polygons are a little distorted. And it's usually just done for smears and stuff, so I wouldn't worry. Probably don't even need this much of the back of the head, but here we are. Might quickly run and grab some tea in a minute as well. I hope you guys don't mind. Just let's carry on for a few more minutes and then we'll do that. I think what I want to do is yeah, I want to finish up this head. I don't know if we'll get to the hand, I'll be honest. But I do want to show you some hard surface stuff. I might make just a couple quick points in the hand, but not actually do it all the way. Because you know, I want to show you guys as much as possible. You can leave a hole in the head, yeah. If you're not ever going to see it, yeah. Oh yeah, if you're using hair cards, then no. Because you need a skull cap. That said, sometimes you can get away with it. It depends on like how you're approaching it, right? Your hair shell could have like a cap built into it. If it's long hair, right, you can usually get away with it a bit more. If it's tight to the head, then maybe a little less. But for instance, like the Zelda model I did, it's designed in a way that it's kind of like cards, but it kind of connects to the top, like a squid or an octopus. And she doesn't need the top of her head because the hair is closed at the top. So there's ways that you can have a card-like look and still be okay. You know? You feeling me? Yeah. You know, I kind of like doing Retopo with the tablet. I'm getting more and more used to that. I definitely don't like poly modeling with the tablet, but Retopo it's nice because I don't have to be as accurate, you know. In poly modeling, you have to be a little bit more accurate with positioning. It's hard to get with a tablet. But when you're placing polygons, you're just like, I can just place it and then slide it around and it's okay. No worries. So my main goal here is to make sure that I have, you know, a loop that goes around the top and bottom here. You know, just clean loops around the ear because I want the ear to be able to bend. For a normal human ear, I'd still have a loop around it, but I'd care a little bit less because the ear doesn't tend to wobble around as much. But I felt like if this character has this really long, fluffy ear, probably wobble a little bit. Ooh, I was supposed to use the relax tool. It might be too late. No, it's fine. I hope everything's going well for everyone. Having a good time getting things done. Why are you this way? Sometimes it just does not want to merge to the route that I want it to. Right. I'm going to space this out a little bit more evenly. Also, a little bit of forewarning, guys. I don't know if I'll have all the retopo done by next weekend. There's a lot to retop. So you might have to do that thing again like we did last week, where we kind of doubled up the detail stage of the sculpt. We might have to double up the retopo as well. I think UVs, I'm more confident I can get it all done in a week. But this one might be a little bit tricky, and I hope that's okay with y'all, because I don't want to be like ruining anyone's momentum. But I think that's probably what we're going to end up having to do, especially seeing how long it's taking me to retop the head here. All fine with me? Okay. I imagine it'll take a lot of folks a while to retop as well, so I think it should be okay. I think this could probably just start triangulating as well. For things that kind of taper at the end, I tend to triangulate them as they go down the surface, because otherwise you end up like with this really dense tip of the geometry. And my goal is to have as evenly sized polygons as possible. So I feel like having triangles there is fine. If I was going to subdivide this, then I wouldn't, but I'm not subdividing this, so it's fine. Come on. Freak out, how dare you. This was not letting me create a polygon. It's like, please just let me click the button. That's all I want. Do you usually do workshops like this? I might join next from start, if so. I think this is going to be a one-off thing. I don't think it makes sense for me to do this again, just because I wouldn't have anything new to teach you guys. The only one of this variation he said last week. I don't know what you mean. I was wondering, how do you decide where to add triangles? So, like I was saying, because this ear is tapering, right? I start triangulating things as we get closer to the tip, because my goal here is to keep polygons relatively the same size. So I kind of want this polygon to be similar in size to this polygon. What would happen if I didn't triangulate it is it would get closer and closer and closer to the end, and then you start getting these really stretched out polygons, these really thin polygons. Not a big fan of that. I'd rather have a triangle here than have these really thin rectangular polygons at the tip. It's either that or you end up with like these extra loops and you have these really tiny polygons, and I just don't like that. There's other ways you can get away with it, like get around it as well if you feel like you really can't have triangles. Obviously, and like I said, if this is a subdivided mesh, I would not have a triangle here because this is not going to subdivide very well. You're going to get a little pole here, and here, right? In the subdivided mesh. And if that were the case, then you might have to go with the route where it gets a little bit more, more detailed at the tip. But because I can get away with not doing that, I avoid it. There's other reasons why you'd create a triangle. Again, this is more applicable to a game model than an animation model that will get subdivided on render time. But another reason you might want to add a triangle is, say here. Now, see, where's a good example? I don't know if I'm going to find a good example here. Ah, here. Okay. Now, if we look at this from the side here, this polygon right here, right? This polygon right here is twisted, right? So this is a twisted polygon. And the system, when you put it into a game engine, will triangulate it for you. But you don't get to decide. So if it goes into the engine, it'll be like, I'm going to triangulate this way. And it's like, okay, say it triangulates this way. Now what's going to happen is, look at it from the side. It's going to be concave, right? This triangle, because the other pole, if we looked at this quad, it probably looks something like this, right? So if we cut this way, we'd have this big indent in the ear that looks like this, right? So instead what we want to do is predefine the triangle and cut it this way. That way you get a nice silhouette and it won't be like this kind of like cavity inside the ear, if that makes sense. So these are special cases. When you're done your model, you'll probably want to go over it. Just look around for anything that's like this and say, okay, this I'm going to triangulate manually because I know that I want it to triangulate in a specific way. So that's another time where you'll want to pick your triangles and use them. And having explained that, I'm actually going to do exactly that. There. See, now you see it that way? And if I triangulated it the other way, now it's concave, right? And it doesn't line up with the ear at all. Neat, right? Yeah. It's still like not quite as far out, but it's close, right? And that's just because there isn't enough polygons here to be very close to the surface. I might want to move things around and whatnot. So you add triangles where you need it to, a face to be triangulated in a specific way. Exactly, yeah. Now I also will forewarn you, is as soon as I start using the relax tool in 3D Coat, it doesn't handle these very well. See, if I relax, it just kind of like starts pulling this up like that. So I will have to go in and clean it up after I use the relax, which is fine. I was going to have to clean it up anyway, but it's something to be aware of. It's good to just know the consequences of what you're doing, right? I think I just want to get most of this face done. I'm going to then grab some tea, and we'll look at some hard surface stuff, and then that'll do it for today. And I'll carry on with this off stream a little bit. And as for next week, I'll probably discuss this with you guys either on Tuesday or maybe right at the end of the stream about what we want to do next week. It might be more retopo if we want, or I could do a prop because we still have to make our sword. There's a number of things we can do, but it's just a matter of just sitting down and deciding what we want, and what you guys think will bring the most value. Now, a little note on these little tufts of hair. You'll see that this doesn't quite cover everything. In Maya afterwards, like 3D Coat limits me. It's not going to let me pull off the model. So what I might do in Maya is I might take this polygon, and I do this sometimes in a couple places, right? But I might just like take this vert and just pull it out a little bit, right? In Maya, right? So I might do something like that. This is over exaggerated, but I might pull it out or bulk it up a little bit. Because it's lower poly, you kind of lose some of the volume of your mesh. And I compensate for that by just pulling out some of the verts here and there. Kind of just adding a little bit of the volume back. Right? So I just want to mention that because I was hoping I would have time to do that on stream, but I doubt it. So at least you guys know that I do that. And I might bring it up again later if I remember. Okay, so there's something weird going on with this loop. Oh, I see. It kind of spreads out. I don't know if I like that. I think I might just make this loop go all the way around, because I don't like that it just kind of ends, you know? And I wish this was a faster process. There's so much more that I want to show you guys, if I'm honest. But I think it's okay. I think generally this is going to, you know, get you most of the way there. Yeah, and you'll all be able to find your way. It's just it takes a little bit of doing. It's a tedious process. It mainly just requires patience. There's obviously a few things that are notable and good to understand. I will say that rigging, learning rigging and animation helps a ton with learning how to do proper topology. I highly recommend trying those things at the very least, because you'll quickly see what works and what doesn't. So you're using triangles to have less polygons in the tip of the ear? Exactly, yes. Because otherwise you're going to end up with these really tiny polygons in the tip of the ear, and it's just not fun to deal with. But I'm being strategic with my triangles, and I'm putting them in places that you know, that support the details, right? So I'm making sure that where the triangles are, they support the silhouette. That's been something I've been super interested in, the whole character modeling process all the way through animating. Well, that's what we'll be doing. So we're going to be getting into rigging, animating, and implementation after this, after we've done the model. So we'll get to see all of that stuff. Now I will say that the rigging stuff will be very simple. We're not going to create a super complex rig, but we will be doing it. I don't know if we'll get into like any face or anything like that, but we'll have like a nice basic general biped, and we'll work from scratch as well. I think it's very important to learn from scratch. I don't really like it when tutorials, start you with an auto rigger because you're not really understanding or learning anything. Because you haven't built a foundation. You're just kind of using tools, right? No bloops? What do you mean no bloops? You mean like you can't do the blop because of the face? I might do, like, I'll probably give her a face rig anyway, but I don't know if I'll do that on stream. That would be a whole stream on its own. I mean, I guess we could do that if you want to have like 3 rigging streams. We could do stuff like that. But if you want just 1 rigging stream, we'll be lucky to get a biped done. I'm gonna hit relax once. And then I have to compensate for what it did because it started to pull away from the corners and stuff. That's why I generally don't use a regular relax tool. I'll usually just go on over it with a brush, the brush tool, and kind of relax it that way. But I felt comfortable this time because it just seemed like it worked okay. I'm thinking about trying a trial of Marvelous for my character, even farther down the rabbit hole. That sounds fun. I think you should do it. Okay. A big thing that'll probably come up is you're gonna end up with like a lot of polygons in the head, and you might need to terminate some to go down the neck. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the polygons around the edge of the jaw here. I might revisit this later and add some more, but we'll see. I do need to move on. I suppose I could show the mouth pocket as well. You guys want that? The eye isn't really all that interesting. Like I can fill that in later. It's just I'm just gonna bridge it, right? And then I'm just gonna add one more loop down inside the eye and then bridge the edges together. It's not that big of a deal, so I'll focus on things that are a little bit more important. I always find this area a little bit tricky under the chin. It's always questionable. But we do it. We do what we can. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Uh-oh. We're gonna have to add a couple loops down here. Because that ain't right. Alright. There we go. That's a little better. That looks all right, don't you think? I think it looks okay. I think we did an okay job. Yeah. Okay, let's start doing a little bit of the edge of the inside of the mouth. I don't know. I guess making the mouth pocket might be a little bit more interesting. I tend to throw a lot of triangles in the mouth pocket because you barely see in there, and it's just, you know, it's just a waste of polygons if you just, you know, fill it, right? So I usually will terminate everything into triangles, just behind the lip, where you stop seeing it. They call me the polygon terminator. All right. I'll be back. Terminate your polygons. This is one thing that I like about Retopo in 3D code is it's very easy to see inside here, whereas it's not necessarily quite as easy in other tools. This one I might need to use quad draw. The colored polygons are a draw too. Yeah. Yeah, they are. And you can change their opacity as well, which is nice. I wish you could pick the color. That's the only thing. I wish that it wasn't auto colored. I wish you could be like, it's this color. Like you can in ZBrush, right? Well, in ZBrush you have to kind of like toggle through them until you get the color you want, so that's still not perfectly ideal, but at least you can change it. It's per grouping. It is per grouping, yeah. But I wish you could be like, you could like, I don't know, like X click on the mesh and it just like change the color or something, right? But sometimes, like some colors are just too much on the eyes. Oh, this is interesting. Last time I retopoed something, I brought in like the whole character and did everything in different layers. Interesting to see it do it as one mesh. Yeah, I mean, you can do that too. If I need specific parts of the polygons to line up, then I will do that. But I don't always do that. Because it's just, you end up with like this bloated file and you have like all this stuff going on. I just like to keep my focus, right? Why overwhelm yourself? There's all this extra stuff. It doesn't have to be so complicated. Now, and also this is all merged as one mesh because the low poly mesh will be one piece, right? Obviously, if I was creating several pieces for the low poly in this area, I would separate it, right? But it's not; it's one piece. I'll have to go in and retopo all the other parts as well afterwards. Oops. At that point, I'm trying to figure out how you make the UV map. I'll be doing the UVs afterwards. Once it's all done, we'll be doing UVs. That's going to be after the retopo. We're going to have another stream for UVs. Right. All in due time. We'll get to it. Okay. So now I've kind of wrapped around the mouth here. And this is where I'll start terminating things into triangles, right? Because the mouth pocket really just doesn't need a lot of polygons. So let's go in here and I will just, every other one like this, I'll just terminate into triangles because, again, it's just a waste of resources. You just don't need them. Something's wrong. I think I miscounted. I think I miscounted. Yeah, there's one extra loop on the top lip. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Huh. Am I crazy or what? If I did this, there should be one that's the middle. Why is there no middle vert? Oh no, there is. No, I'm just crazy. It's fine. There's two here and there's two here. I'm just stupid. Yeah, don't mind me. Never mind. We're good. Like the eyelids, I like to have the same metal loops on the top and bottom. This one isn't exactly in the corner. That's going to be a problem. We're going to want to move that. I'm gonna slide these guys down. Right? I'm too close. Yeah. Just gonna move this guy over. Not like that. Then move this to the corner of the mouth. So that's our corner. Oops. Sometimes 3D Coat likes to merge things when they're not supposed to be merged. Let's make sure that you space them out enough. This area will be a little bit tight. Evan M is now following. There you're following. All right. Now, I would have loved to go over the hand and stuff with you guys too, but I don't have time, it looks like. I will quickly show you how I'll do the fingers, because I think that's the most interesting part of that. But then we'll have to leave it at that. Because I want to show you some hard surface stuff, and I think that's a little bit more important. to kind of get you guys an idea of the full workflow, right? I don't like this. I'm gonna do something like this. Ah, much better. These polygons are a little bit wobbly. Off stream, I will go through and I will make sure that all the polygons are as straight as possible. It's a bit of a tedious process, and it's not particularly interesting to look at. So I'm avoiding doing that here, but that is a level of polish that I will be doing, just so that you're aware, right? Because like, it's very important to have nice aligned polygons, nice straight clean lines. Because when it comes to rigging, if something looks out of place when things are deforming, riggers will think that the weights are wrong. But if the mesh is wobbly, it's very hard to tell if your weight paints are messed up because the polygons are wobbly to begin with. So try to keep them very straight and clean. Your riggers will thank you. Okay. Just out of curiosity, what program are you currently using? I'm using 3D Code. We can go over with this brush tool a little bit. Let's soften this area up a little more. I think that the eyes, now right now I only have one loop around the eye. This is going to stretch a lot, right? You need at least one, if not two loops here to get a nice blend. I'm probably going to put two, and maybe one extra here as well. I'm even skeptical to maybe do like this. You get a lot of loops around the eye. Right? That is important. I want to bring that up. I didn't want to do that until after I had smoothed the mesh a bit, which we did. But you want to have a lot of loops because this area compresses a lot, right? The eyes are going to close, so they're going to stretch plenty. This is actually a little bit of a mistake on my part. I should have modeled the eyes a little bit more closed because there is going to be a lot of stretching here. And we're going to see it, unfortunately. We're going to see a little bit of stretching in the normals on the outer part of the eye here where the crease is. But it's okay. That's just par for the course. Out of curiosity, never heard of that one. It seems cool. It's a nice program. I don't use all the features in it, I'll be honest. I currently just use it for Retopo, but it has a lot of cool features. Did you smooth in 3D Coat? Yes, I did. I did one relax, and then I used the brush tool. And if you hold shift with the brush tool, you can just tap around and get things a little bit softer. And I move things around a little bit too. Brush is a little big. I'll shrink it down. Yeah. A lot of people do hand painted stuff in 3D Code as well. Yes. Yeah. It's got good painting tools from what I hear. They're not particularly for me, but I know a lot of people swear by them. So I will talk about the fingers a little bit. Now the fingers, what I tend to do is I'll use the strokes tool. I'll do this for arms and limbs and stuff too. Unfortunately, this doesn't work if there's overlapping meshes, so I can't use this on this arm because the sleeves or the wraps are going to interfere, unfortunately. But I can do this on the finger. Right, so what I'll normally do is same way we sculpted, oops, that wasn't very good. Same way we did with the sculpting, we'll do one finger, and then we kind of just copy it across to the other fingers, right? This one will be a little bit trickier because of the nails, so I don't know if the copying is going to work too well. But we'll give it a go anyway. I'm going for a little bit more higher poly than sometimes I would do. This is going to have 10 loops per finger. You could probably get away with 8 pretty easily. If you're going particularly low, you could go to E6 or even 5 sometimes. So it's there is a huge variety on like how many polygons you're going to use for something, and you just got to kind of keep in mind like what your goal is, right? Are you targeting mobile? Are you going to do a game where there's like thousands of models on screen at once, or just one? What type of game is it? Is it a fighting game? Is it an adventure game, or is it like some sort of I don't know, TRPG game or something? And you'll think about, okay, what are people actually going to see, right? If it's like an RPG of some kind, maybe has a lot of like cinematic cutscenes or something, you're going to see them acting or whatever. Maybe you want to have a little bit more detail in the hands. If it's like a tactical game where you're just seeing like characters top down and they're really tiny on screen, maybe you're just going to want to have a box for a hand, right? So it's a lot of things to keep in mind. Eventually I'll add loops like this on each joint, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'm going to do that after I've copied them over, because when I copy them, they're going to shift a lot, and when they shift, it's going to be very difficult to clean up if they're too dense. The eyelashes, you do different files. I make them in Maya. Yeah, I make them in Maya. What I end up doing is I'll duplicate the eye mesh and then separate it, and I'll extrude that, and I'll just poly model the eyelashes. That way I know that they line up perfectly with the base mesh. I could demo that really quickly for you if you like, when we go into Maya and do the hard surface stuff, which I got to get to right away because we're out of time. But I'll do this really quickly. I'll show you. I just want to show you the kind of process that I use for fingers, because I know hands are one of the more difficult things to deal with. Who's slamming around out there? Who'll be slamming? Okay. So once I have a finger done, what I'll normally do is I'll save it just so that I don't ruin everything. But we'll go into face mode, right, like this. So we're going to go to our select tool. We're going to select faces, and we're going to just double click on this mesh. There we go. And what we can do is, where is it now? There should be a duplicate clone. There it is. Yeah, see a clone. And now you're going to have the option to take this clone and move it around. So we're just going to, oops, not that one, the center one. Take that one and just kind of slide it, rotate it into place. Try to get it as close as possible. It will never be perfect, and we will have to clean up stuff afterwards. But, just try to get it somewhat close. Right? I think it needs to be scaled up a tiny bit. Right? Cool. And then we're just going to hit enter. Do you want it to be snapped? Yes. There we go. It's a little bit wobbly, but that's okay. And the other thing to keep in mind is it puts it automatically on a new layer. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to select it, and we're going to want to select our main group again, and we're going to want to copy everything over. So we're going to say move selected faces to current layer. Now everything is on this layer. We can select this guy and just delete it. And there, everything is together now. And we can just deselect. And we can go back to our regular poly modeling and start combining these together if you want. I'm going to delete what I'm about to do because normally I'll duplicate all the fingers and then I'll reposition them and connect them. But what we do is we'd essentially like move everything in place, right? So I would want this loop to kind of like go up to the knuckle, similarly here, and then they kind of bridge across. I make sure that they line up, right? So that this bottom loop here lines up with this bottom loop. Very, very important. Otherwise, you're just gonna have a bad time later. You just kind of connect them like that, right? And then you'd add a little loop down the middle, and then you just work your way up. I'm usually pretty comfortable with having a triangle here, like this. I find that this kind of works fine, just from my experience. Same with the bottom. The interior of the hand, you can have quite a few triangles because whenever it deforms, it's going to be closing, and it's going to cover up any weirdness anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Yeah. Didn't know that. I always did finger for finger. Yeah. It's not always going to be perfect because the fingers are slightly different. You can see like this nail didn't quite copy perfectly, so you have to move stuff around. But at least you have something to work with, right? And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do both hands because the hands are different. Thanks, me. You're the best. But anyway, so I think that's about what we're gonna do for the body. I'm gonna do some hard surface stuff next. I'm gonna grab some tea first. Then we'll do a quick pass on the hard surface stuff. That stuff shouldn't take too long. I'm just gonna do a little bit of a brief on it, just to kind of show you the process. And then I'll look at people's work real quickly, and then we'll find someone to raid because we're getting close to noon already, and time is flying. But let me go grab some tea real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, guys? All right. Thanks for your patience, guys. We're back. Okay, so we're going to jump into Maya now. We're going to start looking at low poly work. I'm actually going to create a duplicate of this file. We'll hide this. We're going to go Control-Shift-Save. We're going to do workshop over 2, low over 1. Okay, so now when it comes to hard surface objects, I'm going to do this just like a brief one, just to kind of like explain it and go over it. I create hard surface models in Maya for the sole purpose, not the sole purpose, one, I find it easier to create hard surface stuff in Maya, but also I get to keep all my transforms, and I can zero things out and I can reposition things. So I can quickly say like, oh, I'll create a low poly mesh for the buckle, then make all the new buckles, right? I can quickly create I can bring this back to the origin, make 1/2 of this, mirror over, and we're good to go. Stuff like that, right? So one thing is I'm probably going to keep these all separate pieces. You could combine them if you want to. I don't want to, so I won't. They will be separated. Uh-oh. What's wrong with this mesh? Oh no, Maya. I don't know why when I go to not smooth mode that disappears, but there we are. How many pieces will the model have? I couldn't tell you for sure, but I can tell you at the end. It'll have quite a few. All the straps will be separated. All the buckles will be separated. Each of these pouches, I think, will be one piece. Actually, I think the pouches are probably the best demo. This one I'm going to reduce, but I think this is the best demo because sometimes I'll combine multiple pieces together, and the gauntlet, or the pauldron I won't, but this one I will. So I think this is the best one to show, to be honest. This one I'm going to be treating a little bit differently, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So if I go into this file, oops. This one I sculpted on a little bit more than the pauldron. The pauldron isn't quite as sculpted, and that's the #1 difference. And there's a little bit more that I want to combine together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, and we're going to take a pouch. We're just going to pick one. It doesn't really matter which, because they're pretty similar. I'm going to take this pouch, right? And I'm going to take this strap. Oops. This strap here. There we go. Take this. Ooh, I don't like what happened to this. That's okay. I'm just going to split it. That interior got a little bit more decimated than I would have liked. That's okay. That's okay. All we need is this little strap. I'm going to bake this all together because I think it's worth keeping this all one piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this. And I'm going to export it as an OBJ because it's only one piece and there's really no reason for it to be multiple pieces. So my point is, like, there's some objects that I had started in Maya and I can use that to my advantage so that I can use symmetry options. And I can zero them out and make it easier for me to model them, right? So if we go into our workshop, please don't put my folders on the screen like that. Workshop, already sculpt. We're just going to take our temp OBJ, throw it in here. And that lines up with this. But I have the transform for this, which is brilliant, isn't it? Right? Because now, what I can do is I can take this pouch, I can duplicate it, and I'll just throw this high poly mesh into that mesh, or into that group. I'll just put it back to 0. Like so. 0. Frame it up. There it is. And I can now quickly create a low poly mesh. Yeah. I think I'm going to hide this is the sculpt. Yeah. GR sculpt. I'll hide that. All right. There's a bunch of other mess around, but I don't care all that much. So now what I'm going to do is I have this high poly, I have this low poly. I'm gonna hide everything I don't need. Oh, interesting. Okay, I had that in place already, so I didn't really need to do that other stuff that I did. I'll keep this strap. This strap pretty much lines up with the high poly, so I'm just gonna leave that there. That's gonna be part of my low poly mesh, right? This is gonna stay. Well, this is gonna get deleted eventually. Hit 1. And I'll just check out, see like what the difference is between smooth and not smooth. Sometimes it might be worth running a smooth operation on it before proceeding. In this case, I don't really feel that's the case. But what I will do is I will pull this in a little bit. So we're gonna go Mesh Tools, Slide. Because when it gets smooth, it kind of, you know, rounds off a little bit. So I'm just gonna taper that in slightly. Yeah, kind of like that. I've also modeled in some little details here, like this detail here. I don't need that. I do not need that for the purpose of the low poly mesh. I'm going to simply just get rid of it. There's going to be some nonsense going on in here, I think. Yeah. That's going to be a bit of a mess afterwards, but that's okay. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just isolate select this piece here, make sure that just clean up any of the mess that I've created, because obviously I've created quite a mess. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Let's have another look at it. Now I'm certain that I've created more mess in here, so we're gonna isolate select that and see what it looks like. Yeah, it's not terrible, but we'll fix it. I'm actually probably gonna have to delete this part of the model anyway. Now, one thing that annoys me a lot about Maya is that when you use the cut tool, it'll still try to cut on objects that are hidden, which is kind of dumb. Check N-goons, N-guaps. Yes, I'm definitely, that is something I have to check for, but I'm also less worried about that at the present moment. I'll run a check on it at the very end, but you know, I'll probably end up just creating more N-gons anyway as we go. So there's no real point in checking now. I would just check at the end because otherwise you're just going to be checking multiple times. That's kind of pointless. Okay, so I'm also going to delete all of these interior faces because I don't need them. Right, so we don't need all this stuff because it's going to be all merged into one mesh. Yep. There we go. And now I'm trying to think of what I want to do here. I might have to create a bit of a janky mesh here, but that's okay. Well, I don't know. It's not really going to deform, and it's going to be okay. Also, I realize I'm wasting my time here because I can just mirror it over. I'm being stupid. So yeah, we'll delete that. Right. I go and say, oh man, you know, the best part is I can use symmetry features, I don't use them. How sad. But it's okay, we realized before it was too late. We're good. Good. I might add one more loop here because it needs it anyway. And I can kind of round off the front a little. Because, you know, from smoothing on the high poly object, that corner got a little bit more rounded. I think I'll just, you know, compensate and allow that to happen. Shifting silvers, no problem. I think you're following. You did, my friend. I hope the day is treating you well. Also, for anyone who wants me to look at their models after this for the workshop, just I suggest uploading them now and letting me know, and I can download them and have them ready to go. So maybe kind of just jump into that. I don't know why it has an extra loop back here. I'm still working on it. I can share maybe a screenshot, but there's not much progress. That's fair. You can always ping me later. I can look at it next weekend too. There's no rush. I just want to make sure that anyone who does want me to look at stuff has it ready, because like, otherwise we're just going to be sitting here waiting for me to download files, and that's not fun. I fixed the clothes and I'm redoing the gauntlet. Oh, nice. I'm making sure that the left and right side have the same kind of polygons. That way I can just bridge from one side to the other. Like so. There we are. You know what? I think that I can probably get away with something like this. I don't really need a polygon that goes up the middle. I was thinking I might, but it's fine. And still feel free to ask questions if I'm not covering any information you want to know about. I'm happy to fill in the gaps. Okay. Now the other thing was I wanted to cut this piece out, just for you know, I think it just makes sense to me. I think it makes sense for this to be all one mesh. No, I can't think of any reason for it not to be. It's just such a small piece, right? It's not like the other belts that I feel like could use the actual proper geometry for the loop. It's just such a small piece that it just doesn't seem worth it. Okay, I think that's pretty good. And that's kind of how I go about it, right? So now that I have a low poly mesh, I'll just mirror it over and stuff. But now that I have this, I'm in a pretty good place. You can probably do the little buckle and stuff too. Yeah, why not, right? Uh-oh. Oh no. Hold on. There's other junk in there. Junk that I don't want. Yeah. Let's delete the excess because we don't need it. We do not need the sculpt geo at this point. I think we're good. And we can show our little strap thing. We do not need that one. We do need this one. This one's good. I don't think we don't need this little face at the top because it's hidden. We'll just delete that. Let's soften our edges. Oops. For some more prominent straps, I'd maybe add in like a supporting edge here so you don't get that weird shading, right? If it was a bigger strap, I'd probably do something like this, but it's such a small little thing that I don't feel it's worth the extra polygons. But I mean, we could do that. This isn't going in any real game, so I guess it doesn't matter all that much. But if it was, you know, maybe I wouldn't put in this much polygons, but you do get better shading if you have a little bit of supporting edges, right? I don't need a polygon to go all the way up, but I did want to have that tip rounded off, so I'm just going to like create a triangle. Slide that up a little. There we go. Cool. You know, this probably wasn't the best choice. You can see that kind of V shape in that triangle. I think we can do this in a better way. So what I'm going to do is actually delete this. I think a better way to do this would just be to create a triangle like this. Because it's just, you're not going to see this big obvious triangle stretched up to the top. There, that's much better. There's a little bit of, you know, a little bit of weird shading there, but it's so small and it's at the tip there that it doesn't really matter all that much. We can have a look at the buckle as well. Now, I made a mistake. These were instanced originally. And because I duplicated this mesh instead of instancing it, the instance is disconnected, right? Oh, I disconnected the instances anyway. It's not connected to the rest of the mesh like it's supposed to be. These ones are all connected. Yeah. Which is great. So what I will do is I'm actually going to create an instance of this. Instance leaf. I'll throw it into our pouch group. Right. I'm just gonna copy the attributes over from this. This is a custom tool. Like all it's doing is manually copying each of these lines into the other group. Just so you know what's going on. But I just don't want to manually copy the values. You know what I'm saying? So we're just doing that. There. So now this is instanced. And what we can do, because it's instanced, is I can create a low poly out of this, and all the other ones are going to be updated. That's the great part of doing your hard surface in Maya, right? Because now these are all instanced, and they're instantly updated around the whole model. So I can create the low poly, and I can create the UVs for one of these, and they'll all be done all at once. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? Hey, Sins, looking cool? Well, thank you. We're actually coming up to a close soonish. I'm just showing some hard surface stuff. And then I might show what the hell is, I should have symmetry on. Or I might go over some folks' models for feedback if anyone wants it. I know that I can't remember who asked, but someone asked earlier in stream for some feedback. And I'm willing to oblige if they still want it, but I do need folks to upload their images or files that they want me to look at. Why is the symmetry not? Oh, it's because it's supposed to be symmetry in the Y. I am dumb. I am real dumb. Okay. All right. I think that would do it pretty well. We'll just, you know what I might do? I'm gonna just try this out. Mesh triangulate. Yes, did exactly what I wanted it to. Good. I just delete that. We're good. Great. We have a little buckle, a little low poly buckle, and oh, fix that. No end gods. Get rid of those end gods. All right. So that is that. And now if I wanted to, like the little strap, I could have added some more supporting edges, of course. So maybe I wanted to keep this outer loop or something, so the shading's a little bit nicer, but you know, it doesn't make that much of a difference, so I don't think it's worth it. But it's worth knowing that you can, or should at least think about those kind of things. But yeah, so you can see there, like, there's a little bit of weirdness going on. Your normal map's going to fight this. You won't see it necessarily too badly, but you'll always see it a little bit. It will be there because at certain lighting angles, your normal map just won't be able to counter the shadows. It's just how it is. But we'll see what it looks like without this. Yeah, so you can see how it gets a little bit darker on the edges because I removed that edge loop. And you know, that's maybe not what you want, but it's also okay. I could also have said like, oh, I want to bevel this or something and have like one beveled edge, and you know, that's also a perfectly valid approach. I could have that outer edge beveled, and I might. You know, I might do this. This is more like a showcase of something that looks nice than something that's supposed to be, you know, game ready. So I think it's okay. I can go about this and say it's fine. I think I'm just going to merge these based off of threshold. There we go. Yeah. Let's knock that up a little bit in there. Why not make hard edges? You could do that too if you wanted to. You could say like, oh yeah, I want these to be hard edge. Now, hard edges like this become a little bit difficult because if you do this, you have to communicate this with your team. So if you don't communicate with your team, what might end up happening is like rigging will get and it'll be like, nope, mesh or modeling, mesh display, unlock normals, and then they might soften it. Like sometimes that kind of stuff happens. Or maybe someone down the line will update the mesh or change it. And like this stuff doesn't necessarily stay. Or maybe someone will export and be like, don't keep custom normals. You don't know what your pipeline is, so it doesn't always work. But yeah, you can definitely, if this is communicated, then it's fine. But make sure that like this is okay. At the very least, like what I normally do is like I'll check it in Engine after it's rigged and done, and I'll be like, is it still how it's supposed to be? But like it can happen, and you're not always going to be the one who's working on this either. Someone else might come in and re-author things, and they don't realize that you had a specific hard edge on a thing, and they'll just smooth it, right? Yeah. So like that's the thing, is like you got to consider people you're working with too. It's like things might happen. Yeah. Like one issue I had is, you know, like sometimes you'll rotate the eyes outwards a little bit because like, you know, you exaggerate the facial features, or you have say like really big eyes. So basically they are kind of on the side of the head a little bit, and they have to kind of splay outwards, otherwise they look cross-eyed. What rigging did is they just straightened the eyes out. It's like, well, now they're cross-eyed all the time. So like it's just like, yeah, stuff like that can happen. Yeah, so just be aware of it. But yeah, you can totally just do this and make it a hard edge if you want. The beveling does look nicer though. Like it does shade nicer because you get this kind of like soft hard edge kind of. And Subin, hey, welcome in. How is life treating you? I hope it's well. We're just doing some teaching. I don't know why it's beveling like that. Ooh. Alright. Life is good. Just moved recently and got internet. Nice. Does sound good. Is it still gonna mess up if I try to bevel this? Yeah, sort of. Okay. Phone data is unlimited, but it capped at 50 gigabytes, and I couldn't even load Twitch. Oh, bugger. Sucks that you had to use your phone. How you been? I've been alright. Been alright. Just chugging along, making stuff, you know, as you do. Just been trying to teach a few things here on stream, and hopefully it's been useful to folks. So I modeled this little circle thing in here. I don't need this. I always make these and I always end up deleting them in the low poly. It's kind of funny actually. But yeah, we don't need that, so we're just gonna get rid of it. I was not, Stephen. I'm very sorry. I keep slipping on that. I'll have to look at it. Do you want to link that to me again? Sorry about that. I tend to do that a lot. I kind of just lose track of things. I'll DM you again. I did end up getting updated file. Cool, cool. Yeah, sorry about that. I've had very little. I've had very little time to think. All right. So now, what we have here is we have our low poly pouch. Okay. And I think this will be the end of the recording for VOD watchers. Unless anyone in chat, is there anything specific you want me to like go over about low poly before we finish up? I'll hang out with you guys for a little bit, but it'll be the end of workshop stuff specifically. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an instance sleeve of this. And we're just going to take these two guys, store the attributes, and copy them over. There we go. Let's delete the other pouches. We do not need those. And there we go. So we got low poly pouches. All the buckles have been updated because they are instanced. And that's pretty dang good if I do say so myself, right? Eyelashes. That's right, Ike. Eyelashes. Okay, we'll cover that really quickly. It's still not perfect. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, no worries. I will quickly go over eyelashes and also the eyeshadow as well. I think I will kind of go into this more detail again later, but I will cover it now anyway, okay? I'll use the sculpt mesh as a demo. Obviously, we would use the proper mesh that we just created, but it's the same process. Right? So what I end up doing is I go into this mesh and I say like, okay, where do I want the eyelashes to start? Realistically, the eyelashes should start at this edge, but I usually start them one edge in because I just like the look better. But technically they should start from the other edge, right? So what I end up doing is I take this edge, right? And then I delete everything else. I'm gonna show these body again, right? And I take this mesh and I just take the eyelashes where I want the eyelashes to expand from. We'll just remove all the areas that I don't want. Probably don't want them anywhere here. We just extrude them. Oops. And there we go. And then we just go in here and we just, that's it. We just take these and we just position them wherever we want. We just create our eyelashes. That's essentially how I go about it. Obviously, I put a little bit more time into making sure that it's correct. And I would remove this extra loop that we don't need anymore. But this way I make sure that it lines up with the mesh perfectly. And if you wanted it to line up with your sculpt mesh, which I usually don't, the one that's in the sculpt is usually a placeholder. I don't care about it. But if you wanted it to line up with that, you could just bring in that mesh and just line it up, right? Yeah. It is not a big deal at all. I hope that helps. Like, maybe it's not exactly what you wanted it to be, but that's kind of how I go about it. And you could texture this in a number of ways. I normally just keep it like a nice solid color because I like this kind of like stylized shape eyelashes. But you could also put some alphas on it, right? You could put some eyelash streaks on it if you wanted to go that route. It's all up to you. Ends being a plane then? Yeah. You could add thickness to it as well if you wanted. I do that sometimes depending on what style I'm going for. Like the Zelda models I did had thickness on their eyelashes, but most of my models are flat eyelashes. Yeah. And then you just kind of like duplicate that over, right? And you got eyelashes, yeah. Are you available for commission? Currently not. I have a lot on the go, and I know that you're probably looking for a rigger, and I don't tend to do rigging contracts. Just because like I just don't find it fun, and I'd be a bit frustrated. Eduello, hey, how are you doing? Interesting. But if you're looking for someone to do rigging, I can look around for you. I have one friend who would maybe be interested. Anyway, so does that help, Ike? That's kind of what I do. And we'll go around more with the eye stuff when we go into the UV stage. Probably during the UV stream, I'll talk about this a little bit more as well. Because I want to talk about like creating this kind of like occlusion shadow around your eye and stuff like that. Yeah. I think it's mostly done just minor things, shoulder moves. Gotcha, yeah. So probably like skin weight fixes and stuff. Yep, thanks. All right, cool. So I will delete that because you don't need it, hide that because you don't need it. We'll have one last look at where the model is at currently. There she is. Cool. So, yeah. I think we're doing quite all right. I'm going to close up this recording for anyone watching the VOD later. Thanks for listening, and I hope you learned something and it wasn't overly rambly. It probably was overly rambly, but here we are. Anyway, next week we might next video might be UVs, but we might do something in between. We'll see. You'll be able to know by the video title. All right, bye now.